Maize and Blue Nation, it's Tom Brady. I co-founded Autograph with one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. That's why I'm excited to announce the release of a new app that recognizes the biggest Michigan fans. The Autograph Fandom app gives you access to the best Michigan content, fan challenges, and exclusive rewards for diehard Wolverines, all for doing the things you already do, like listening to this podcast. Head over to the Apple App Store and search for Autograph Rewarding Fans and download.
I'm upset. No disrespect, respectfully, but disrespectfully is disrespect. Don't be disrespectful. Those vile, disgusting Spartans, poor little bro them. And I'ma tell them why I'm mad. That vile, disgusting cesspool in Columbus, the other state, and of course, as always, I'm upset. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is I, the Maze Madman, M3, not the Beamer. Got my guy over here, LukeDog, week
yes,
0.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
You ready for this beatdown? It's going to be a beatdown of epic proportions. We got a couple things to talk about. So earlier, I think it was last week, Lucas put up his Oregon versus Michigan roster breakdown. He said who he thought would take the position by position battle. I replied, we're going to get into that a little later though. I'm a little under the weather if you can't tell, but we're going to make it work. Lucas, how are you today?
Dude, I'm excellent. I'm glad that we're finally doing this again. It's been a long time. I think it's been like nearly a year maybe since we've done our last show. We can finally get this going again. Oregon is officially in the Big Ten, so we can start talking about that. I'm excited. I'm excited to start playing you guys each and every year. It's gonna be a great rivalry, man. We're gonna take over the other state. We're gonna take over the other state as your biggest rival. Just wait.
Look, I will say this: you guys came to the Big Ten and got right to work as far as the recruiting goes. Other than the other state, I don't think there's anybody hotter on the recruiting trail. Speaking of it, let's talk about it. Oregon's hot start on the recruiting trail. What do you think of it? What's causing it? And will it pay dividends?
Look, man, I think a big part of it has been Dan Lanning's message. And he sent out, that cinematic when the Alabama job was open. He sent out that cinematic saying, if you want a coach that's going to stick around, you come here. And I think that's been the message that he's spread to all of these guys. And I think it's made a huge difference. Obviously, you look at a guy like Elijah Rushing. For whatever reason, he has dropped significantly in the on-3 recruiting, and I'm not really sure why. I also think on-3 is a bit of a joke, but that's just me. But you look at Elijah Rushing, he was committed to Arizona and flipped over to us, and look what that did. You know, obviously Fish is now the head coach of the Washington Huskies. And so, these kids want to go play for a program where the coach is going to, stay put, at least for the time being.
What do you think about the Big Ten being a draw too, right? Like being able, you're playing the Penn States, the other states, the Michigans of the world, along with bringing your top rivals, other than Oregon State, I guess, over with you.
Oregon State's low, bro. Like they're not our rival. They're not our rival. They haven't been for a very long time. But I think the Big Ten, just the title, just having Big Ten, is a big thing. Even back when the Pac-12 first started, I still think that SEC patch and that Big Ten patch meant a little bit more in college football than the Pac-12. Unfortunately, because I'm West Coast all the way, but I do think it makes a big difference. And a little bit more exposure for these kids.
Yeah.
They're going to be on the national stage, maybe actually a lot more than they would have been in the Pac-12. Right. So it definitely makes
playing some of those
difference.
early games too, man. I think that was one of the things that hurt the Pac-12. You guys were playing midnight football. You know what I mean? Not to say obviously some of that is going to still happen because you gotta appease the West Coast fan too. And the night games are big over there. What do you think about what Sean is saying here? Players signing in the South, they go from 4 to 5 stars. If they sign in the North, they go from 5 to 4.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, I'm not really surprised. At the end of the day, the stars don't really matter. It's what happens on the field. So it doesn't really make too much of a difference to me. I think Elijah Rushing and Aiden Breland, even Efi, I think it might be Efi, however you say his name. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. But I think all three of those guys, are 5-star caliber, but because they're going to Oregon, they just aren't. And I think you look at some schools on the West Coast don't get that treatment though. I think USC is one of those schools, one of those blue blood type schools that they keep their 5 stars how they are, even though that some of them maybe shouldn't be 5 stars. They still keep them out. They still keep them down there in LA. So I think it's just the Oregon brand. I just think some of these recruiting places they're still not on that the Oregon hype. Maybe we got to win Natty.
That's true.
I think that's how it is.
When I see you on Twitter and you're always battling on Twitter. By the way, Luke is a great follow on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. What's it, LukeDog?
Appreciate you. Yeah, LukeDog McTight. Yeah.
Be sure to follow him on Twitter. He is a great follow, and he's always defending Oregon, which I can appreciate. But it seems like the only thing people have to say about Oregon is the fact that they haven't won a national championship. Which you take how you want to take. Let's move on. Dan Lanning, he did come out and make that statement, which I thought was great. And I don't even care about this part here that he was never offered, but of course that was fodder for Twitter and other haters to be like, oh, this guy wasn't even offered the job in Alabama. By the way, that's what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing, man. Like. Actually, I'm looking at right now. There's a crystal ball from 247. The Gatlin Bear is going to the University of Oregon. By the way, I think as far as
yo,
yes sir.
Damn it, man.
I'm stoked about that, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, you see all these Washington fans that for whatever reason they still defend their coach that just straight up left them after they went to a natty, and which I will never understand, by the way, because you have you have
follow where on what platform? Let us know what platform we'll follow you.
But you have a team that you just took to a national title, a team that's about to be in the Big Ten, by the way, who, obviously, and, I'm all for the downfall of the Huskies. I am all for it. I think Fish is going to be a good coach, but I'm all for it. But now that you got these Washington fans that are defending Kalen DeBoer, like, oh, it was always DeBoer. It was always going to be him for Alabama. He has this 104-17 record as a head coach and this and that. I'm like, dude, I promise you it went in this exact order. It went Kirby Smart. It went Dan Lanning. I 100% guarantee that's how it was.
Dan Lanning has history in the South too. People forget.
Yeah.
There's that.
He coached at Alabama. He was a GA at Alabama. Got, his big. I mean, dude, he coached with the legends of coaching right now. I mean, who was on that coaching staff? It was like, obviously Mario Cristobal was on that coaching staff. You got Kirby Smart that was on that coaching staff. You got the Mel Tucker was on that coaching staff. what's his face? It's at Florida State right now. His name is blanking me.
At Florida, Mike Norvell.
Yeah, Norvell was on that coaching staff. Like that coaching staff was absolutely legendary. Yeah. So for Dan Lanning to come from that and to pass up on the job at Alabama, I couldn't be happier. But it leads me to feel like if Dan Lanning does get that natty, obviously we're going to be super stoked. We need to get over that hump. But does Dan Lanning take a shot at the league after that happens? Or does he get us, close to it for like 3-4 more years and then hop to the league? The league scares me a little bit, especially with Kelly, and then obviously what happened to you guys here recently.
Yeah. So let's get into that. Actually, this is so upsetting. By the way,
we knew it was going to happen, dude. I mean. I know you didn't want to believe it.
Let me ask this first to Michigan, to the Michigan followership here in the comment section. By the way, like the live if you haven't already. Share this on your social media. Let's get these likes up. What do you think about if Sherrone Moore did enough to earn the job? I know we had a small conversation about this the last time I went live, but there are some detractors out there. I personally think he did enough. I think it was more of a continuity move to hire him as a head coach, more so than a resume move. Although, he has Penn State and Ohio State on the resume now. But what are your thoughts, Lucas? Do you think it was enough, or do you think this was just the natural thing to do?
Well, I think it was smart on Michigan's part. They didn't take any time. They didn't interview anybody. They didn't take any time. They were like, Sherrone Moore, you are the guy. And I think it's deserved. I mean, do I think 4 games is enough? It's hard to say, but you could have ended up getting a coach that had never even head coached or attempted to head coach in his career. I mean, you look at Oregon, obviously, bring it back to Dan Lanning. He had never been a head coach before he came to Oregon, and
that's a big job.
He could have failed. I mean, he could have quite literally failed. Obviously, I mean, we've done well with him, but he could have failed. You got guys that, have never been a head coach. Now, Sherrone Moore, I don't think he had ever had any head coaching jobs before he was
he did it.
The offensive line coach, correct?
He did not.
And so having even just those 4 games, especially the biggest games of your season, really, having just those 4 games, I think it's well deserved. I think he should get it. I think he's a weird dude. I think he's got to chill out a little bit with some of his. So he's a little emotional. He wears his heart on his sleeve. I think it's all right, but I think he's got to chill out a little bit. But hey, being a weird head coach has worked at Michigan. Jim Harbaugh is one of the weirdest MFers I've ever seen in my life as a head coach. So hey, it's worked out.
That's a fact. I saw my guy Antoine said Michigan doesn't use wide receivers like that, which is also true. Do you think that changes with Moore now taking the reins at head coach and with Kirk Campbell possibly moving up to OC?
No, because I could see Sherrone Moore doing the Mario Cristobal thing where he obviously, I mean, I hope to our Lord and Savior that Sherrone Moore turns out better for you than Mario did for us. But Mario had some good years. I can't knock on him too much, but I think you guys are going to stick to this ground and pound. I think you guys are going to start recruiting some bigger running backs like a Hassan Haskins type guys, like these big running backs where you're just going to be able to pound the rock all game. I think that's what you're going to stick with. And I think Antoine is right where I don't think you're going to need to use wide receivers as much. Now, not getting a guy like Gatlin Bear sucks.
Right.
It still sucks. I mean, he's a 5-star per 247. He's a 5-star wide receiver. It's going to suck no matter what. But I don't think you guys are going to need the receivers quite as much. moving forward. I think you're going to still be this ground and pound triple tight end packages type offense.
That's fair. Let's get to this, man. Jay Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, and now Ben Herbert all gone. From Michigan. I think the Jay Harbaugh might be the reason that Gatlin Bear now is crystal ball to Oregon. Jesse Minter, I can't say enough about what he did as a DC for Michigan. Carrying on, by the way, what Mike McDonald had already started a couple years ago. Ben Herbert, the best strength and conditioning coach in the country. He was the highest paid strength and conditioning coach in the country, I believe. And I believe they were going to offer him the highest contract for a strength and conditioning coach in the country. He moves on as well. All these guys joining Jim Harbaugh in the NFL. Is this a big deal? How much does this hurt Michigan?
I mean, what do you think? I mean, personally, I think it's gonna hurt them a lot, and unfortunately, I don't have Michigan having as well of a season, and I'm sorry for your fans. And
I saw that you didn't have us making the 12-team playoff. It's disrespectful.
I don't have you. I'm sorry. I just don't. If you have Harbaugh back, if you have Harbaugh back, and you have your entire coaching staff, now you're never going to keep a coaching staff after you win a national title. It's never going to happen. I mean, the only teams that sometimes can do it is Alabama, but they still hardly ever keep a coordinator. They're going to go be a head coach somewhere, or they're going to go to the league or something like that.
It'll be rough to find one that has.
I mean, I think you could push. You could go to Alabama just for that. Exactly. The staff has been gutted at Alabama before because they lose these guys to be head coaches.
Fair. That's a fair point.
But the problem is that they kept Saban for so long. So I mean that fits into that kind of thing. But I think it makes a big difference, especially for recruiting. I think you guys are going to be good. Hey man, we'll get into my top 12 when we get into it. But I just strength of schedule. I think this is going to be the hardest schedule that Michigan has had, maybe ever. So I think that plays into it. Having a first-time head coach, I just think that kind of plays into some of it. They all went to LA, correct?
They did.
Okay. So I mean, you can't be too upset about it. I mean, as long as at least they didn't like dip out to another Big Ten school or another school somewhere. For whatever reason, at least they went to the league. Which to me, the league is a potential to come back, in my opinion.
That's fair. Let me go here. I gotta start this one off because these vile, disgusting, cesspool-ridden Buckeyes dropped the proverbial bag on the heads of college football and have recruited top-end talent, skill positions, might I add, by the way. But they always recruit skill position. They are desperate. And I believe this is a last-ditch effort for Ryan Day to save his job. If Ryan Day, forget getting to the 12-team playoff, if he doesn't beat Michigan this year, if they lose early in that 12-team playoff, let alone don't make that 12-team playoff, goodbye, Ryan Day. And then this roster is also imploded. Let me know what you think about it.
I'm going to be honest. I think the reason why they're getting these recruits and why they're doing so well in this recruiting class, a lot has to do with. Now, I know a lot of them committed before this, but I think a lot of it has to do with Jim Harbaugh. With Harbaugh leaving and pretty much all this recruiting class or all this coaching staff, along with obviously JJ leaving, some other big guys leaving. I think it has a lot to do with this recruiting class at Ohio State because now they're like we can go win this. Like we can go do this thing, and we're gonna have to do this thing. We're gonna have to, go crazy and win these and get these big recruits in order to win the Big Ten this year. You're gonna have to have a very elite team. So I think a lot of it has to do with Michigan losing a lot of these guys, because I mean, genuinely, some of these guys probably would have went to Michigan. Some of these dudes that Ohio State has gotten probably would have went to Michigan if Harbaugh was still there.
I agree. So. At least there would have been in the mix for sure. Again, I think it's a desperation thing. Shout out to Shine. He says all they have to do is beat Michigan. I agree with that. They beat Michigan. He's probably saved his job. And it will be in Columbus, which makes it the leverage that much more, right? Like he's got to win in Columbus this year, right? They lose in Columbus again. It's not going to be a great look for them. But I don't think they address the areas in which Michigan has exploited them, and that is the offensive line. Mm-hmm. And Michigan has.
I think they just pulled a 5-star though.
Yeah, but that's in the 2025 class.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
They haven't addressed the offensive line. The Michigan arguably has the best defensive line coming back. Arguably, right? We'll get into that. I'm sure you have something to say. Coming back, and especially on the interior, I don't think that they've addressed what Michigan hurt them the most on. Now, granted, they have talent at wide receiver. They always do. They may have the most talent that they've ever had at wide receiver, arguably, although one could argue that when they had I can't think of their name.
They had a lot. I think they had Olave, Harrison,
Marvin Harrison, Igbuka, right? Those guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, like those guys. That's probably the most talented group. But this one's not far off. And then running back, right? They're already saying they have the best running back duo in the country. Might be
tough
true
to argue.
In terms of skill set, but they're gonna have to move the ball on Michigan. They're gonna have to protect Will Howard. Sorry.
Oh, I was like, what? I'll pick it up if you're struggling.
Yeah, I'm dying over here. But go ahead.
I think a big thing for the other state, I got to remember that on the show. The other state. I think a big thing for them though is when I was looking at their schedule, they play 4 road games. Only 4.
Right. That's
they only
crazy.
Play 4 road games, which is incredible. I mean, like, how do you get away with that having only 4? I get it if, like, one of our West Coast teams have only 4 road games because they got to travel a lot, but only 4 road games, it's dumb. I 2 of those road games are in Eugene and in at Penn State, so it's like I get it. Those are really, really tough games. There's going to be really, really tough games, but I think that. Is super big for them. I don't know. I don't know. I think they got a really talented roster, but it's all up to the third baseman, man.
Absolutely. Everyone's favorite third baseman. All right, here we go. We'll second to last segment here. Fire Warde Manuel. Michigan's athletic department seems to be the popular sentiment within the program and the fans. Warde, there is accusations he didn't talk to Jim Harbaugh for 6 months. That they offered that contract that ultimately would have made Jim Harbaugh the highest paid coach in college football in perpetuity. They offered that in the 11th hour, and it was too late. That he didn't want to protect Harbaugh the way that Harbaugh thought he should be protected. That obviously we see what happened with the baseball program. He lost the best coach Michigan's had in baseball. He's okay. Beeline leaves for the NBA, and bombs out a little bit, but he hires a legend, All right, let me say it. And I was excited about it at first. I was excited about Juwan Howard coming back. It was kind of in the same mold of Jim Harbaugh coming back, right? Member of the Fab Five, very controversial group. And early on, he had success. We made the Elite Eight, I believe, maybe a Final Four. Let me know in the comment section. Since that last Elite Eight, when we lost to UCLA, though, Michigan basketball might be 500, which is not great. Now, granted, he's kind of handcuffed when it comes to recruiting, just like every coach in Michigan athletics when it comes to recruiting in terms of NIL. And Warde has come out even since hiring Sherrone Moore, saying that he doesn't want to get into the pay for play for NIL, which I think sends a terrible message. What are your thoughts on Warde Manuel? Do you think Michigan should fire him? Let me know.
I mean, I don't know too much. I don't know too much about the situation. I don't know too much about him. But from what you just told me, I think that is atrocious. I think. The fact that he didn't talk to Jim for that long is absolutely like, I'm dumbfounded. Like, this is crazy. I don't know. I don't understand how one of your best coaches in the history of your program and a great player in the history of your program is not getting these, some of this help that I think he deserves. I mean, listen, was there wrongdoing? Maybe. Did he know about it? Maybe. I don't know. But I would think that if you were like, we just won an Natty, and this coach has brought a team that was, for lack of a better word, not good, terrible. They were pretty bad before Harbaugh jumped in.
Yeah.
And brought him to national and won a national championship. You'd think that he would get some more love and some more praise. And as far as like the other programs, it sounds like he is drowning them as well.
He's a failure.
I know when Oregon beat Michigan in basketball this year, I thought it was pretty impressive until I saw Michigan the rest of the season. And I was like, damn, okay, all right, they're not as good as I thought maybe they were, but it's just, I mean, do you fire him? Maybe not, just because things can turn around quickly.
Here's the thing: he's got national championship now on his resume, right?
Yeah, so that hurt. I mean, that hurts that hurts the fans, cause of trying to get him fired. But he also lost the coaching staff of that national title, so I mean that doesn't help.
Okay, so I'll finally break down an answer for this. I think that Jim leaving helps Michigan in these cases. There may be some, at most, I believe, there may be some scholarship taken away. I think that's it. I think the problem is, and hear me out here, because this is real. The money is the problem, right? If you watch the most watched college football games this year, Michigan was involved in, I think, 3 of the top 5 or something like that. And then 5 of the top 8.
At least 3
right?
of the top 10 or whatever it was.
So
it was up there.
If you follow that money, right, nobody is going to, those networks don't want Michigan to be punished, at least harshly, because those networks are getting revenue from Michigan football games, right? People are paying advertising dollars to post their commercials on Michigan games. And the companies that paid, the NBC, the Foxes, the CBS that just got in bed with the Big Ten, trust me, they don't want a cash cow to be harshly punished and you don't see them on television anymore, right? Or you don't see them competing at a high level anymore, which some of these sanctions would do. And I think that is more important than anything.
I mean, that's why these teams like Alabama and Notre Dame and these teams that bring in a lot of viewers, and a lot of money into these programs, they never get hit hard. I mean, USC got hit hard, but they didn't actually hit them until USC was dog shit. So like they didn't at that point they didn't care because these kids or because USC wasn't getting the viewership that they were getting from back in 06, 05, 04. So they like to defend. Okay. they like to. We're getting crazier. They like to defend these teams that are bringing in a lot of viewership, like they're going to defend Colorado, even though Colorado just admitted to a bunch of wrongdoing. They're not going to give a shit. It's just,
because they were like 2 games on the top 10 were Colorado people.
Yeah. I think Oregon, Colorado was like the number 2 watched game in the country all season. And so, and for whatever reason, people still want us to play them. And I feel bad for them if they want to do that. And honestly, they're not ready. They are not ready. We saw that last year. They're not ready for this. But they're going to defend these teams. You go back to in my experience with Oregon, obviously, and Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly got in trouble. He was getting in trouble for recruiting issues, and nobody seems to remember this because the NCAA didn't give a shit. They swept it on when Chip Kelly left to the league. They swept it under the rug. They didn't care. They gave us a couple violations, like we couldn't get like our scholarship players were like cut down or something, but it didn't make a difference because we already had this crazy elite team by the time he left. So they just didn't care once Chip Kelly left. And I think it's going to be the same thing with Michigan. I think once, now that Harbaugh's gone, I think the NCAA
I think that's who they want to punish anyway, right?
It is 100% who they want to punish. And so now that he's gone, they're not going to give a shit anyways. In worst case scenario, the next time you guys suck, then they're going to be like, okay, we're stripping the natty. They're stripping, they're going to do all that kind of shit because they're going to be like, okay, now they're not getting viewership anymore. We're just going to take away their shit. Even though you played in it and you won it, you won the game. Same thing with USC. They played in the natty. They won the natty. Reggie Bush, no matter where he was in college football, he was going to win the Heisman Trophy. He was one of the greatest, if not the greatest college football player I've ever seen in my entire life or in the history. So he was going to win the Heisman. Right. Or should fall in LA. He was going to win the Heisman. They were going to win the Natty. And they won the Natty. And so I think it's the same kind of thing with Michigan. And it's going to be the same kind of thing. Even though Notre Dame fans and Ryan are going to cry about it. They're going to cry about it for years upon years about how this is an illegitimate Natty. They're not gonna get the satisfaction that they want.
Yeah, man, I agree 1,000%. Real quick, let me show this. Watch Week 0 recently did their Week 0 awards, and Week 0 award for best defensive lineman went to the only person that it can possibly go to.
Best defense, I believe.
Best defense.
No. Best defensive line.
Best defensive line.
Best defense. Yeah, best defensive line went to Big Blue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is best defensive line. Hold on, this guy didn't win best defensive lineman?
No. It's because the problem with Week 0 is that we got we have such a big Oregon and such a big Notre Dame following that when we put a poll up, like a Notre Dame or an Oregon player are going to win that poll.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of just how it goes. So Howard Cross, I do think Howard Cross is a very good D tackle. Yeah. Howard Cross ended up winning that poll because Ryan did his magic, with his Notre Dame following. So he ended up winning that, but I was super glad that Michigan got to win at least one of these awards. I think they're going to win another one here coming up soon. But I'm super glad for best defense. I think they'll end up winning that one. I'm not putting Notre Dame in there. I could, but I'm not going to do it because I know that we've got too many Notre Dame winners. But I'm super glad that they won because that meant Ryan had to make a Michigan edit. And
yeah. If you're here, by the way, like and share. Now let's get to it, let's get to it, Luke.
Let's do it.
About that time.
Hold up. He gonna get this work. You gonna get this work.
You're gonna get this work. All right. For those who don't know, that's the great 21st century poet Loaded Lux. But here we go. Lucas posted this up on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
If I can share it, here we go.
Hey, in my defense to this, I was very honest, for one. And for two, Buckeye Garrison was the one that started this.
He was
the one that started this whole thing. So I went on.
Shame on you for falling into Buckeye Garrison's trap. He's a vile, disgusting fan of that vile, disgusting cesspool in Columbus. But here we go. Luke says Oregon versus Michigan offensive and defensive breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. He has Oregon with the best quarterback, best running back, best wide receivers. Tight end is a push. This is disrespectful. Best O-line push, also disrespectful. Defensive tackles, Michigan, no doubt about it. Defensive ends, push. I thought Michigan has better defensive end. Linebacker, push. This, let me just tell you guys, I gave Michigan the clean sweep on defense.
Mm-hmm.
I think Michigan has better defensive ends, better linebackers, better corners, better safeties than Oregon. Let us know in the comment section what you believe. And is Lucas out of his mind? Let me show you what I did. Because it's by far the most respectable list. If I must say so myself. Here we go. It's not sharing because why would it do the right thing?
Why are we doing the right thing here? All
right, here we go. This is my list. I gave Oregon the nod at quarterback. I do believe that right now, because Michigan, we don't even know who's going to be the quarterback at Michigan. Let's be honest. Oregon does get the nod at quarterback. Running back, I said push.
Okay.
I said
okay. Let's now. I what I want to do here is I want to go by each position. I want you to give yours. I want to give mine. So quarterback, you gave yours. We don't know who's going to be the quarterback there. I think regardless of who you have at quarterback, Dylan Gabriel is arguably the best quarterback returning in college football this year.
Okay.
I think you could put him behind Carson Beck. Maybe I don't really get the Carson Beck hype that much, but Quinn Ewers. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is up there, but Dylan Gabriel, I mean, he's already number 3.
To be fair, Carson Beck had a better season than anybody gave him. That anybody thought.
No, he did extremely well, but how much is that the team? That,
I get it.
So
what about Ryan? Ryan's gonna say Riley Leonard's the best quarterback.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna acknowledge that.
Let's get to it.
The running back position now. Big debate, but here's I don't know who you have outside of the Don. And I don't think you have the number 2, the 1-2 that Oregon has, and Noah Whittington, who was I believe he had like 700 yards 2 years ago. And then last year he was hurt all season. I think he got hurt in the Colorado game and was out for the rest of the year. But then we also have Jordan James, who ran for over 700 yards and 11 touchdowns this season. So I think also, not to mention, I want to bring up his I can't remember his name. That's awesome. No, we got in this transfer. He's from some small school, but dude's like 6'2", 230, running back, and I think he had like nearly 2,000 yards last season.
Right.
So we brought in a lot of guys. So I don't know. I mean, you tell me who you have outside of Donovan.
The Don.
Yeah.
Okay. So Khalil Mullings actually, arguably, was better than Donovan Edwards this year.
Donovan Edwards had a down year.
He did. I think skill for skill, Donovan's a better running back, but Khalil runs hard every time. He's a beast. All right.
Okay.
Then we get into Cole Cabana, who has not yet seen the field, but by all accounts is an absolute monster. All right. We're bringing in 2 freshman running backs who could see early playing time, and Kaipana and Jordan Marshall, who is Mr. Ohio. I just believe the duo of the Don and Mullings is, if not, because I have to consider the other state, unfortunately, who at top end, those guys together are probably better than Michigan's duo of Khalil and the Don. But yeah, outside of that, it's hard for me to see a duo better than Michigan's duo.
In terms of returning production, I don't think there is. I think maybe the other state has more than Oregon, but I think in terms of returning production, now you can say that this kid is really, really good, and maybe he really is. Obviously, Donovan Edwards, he's proven that he is really good, but I haven't seen that prove it from these other guys, right? You named your third guy who hasn't seen the field. Now
that's fair. That's fair.
The 3 guys that I've named, Jay Harris is the kid's name, by the way. He had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns, 6'2", 215, Division II All-American last year.
Right.
So there was a lot of production coming back for Oregon. So I think that's where we take the edge.
This one, because of the depth, because of the proven depth of Oregon, right, is why I said push, and I could see Oregon.
But I could see Donovan Edwards being the better of the group.
Right. I do think Donovan Edwards, of the group of Oregon's running backs and Michigan's running backs, he's the best running back in my opinion. But he did have a major down year this past year. He has a lot to prove.
He was on my fantasy team for about 2 weeks.
The opportunities, they were obviously trying to feed Blake Corum and get him that record this year. So the opportunities weren't the same as they were last year when Blake got hurt, quite literally. But we'll see what happens. He should be the bell cow this year. All right, let's move on to the next group, and that is wide receiver, Oregon.
Yeah, that one's not even close.
All right. I like Michigan's young talent. I think Samaj Morgan is a dog. I think Tyler Morse is going to be very good. I wish we could have held on to my guy Moore, but unfortunately we didn't. And I gotta, it's some young guys on the team, but again, they're not proven. So
is that the guy that went to Oregon State?
Yes, that is the guy that went to Oregon State of all places.
Yeah, right. I think he must be from Oregon because
I think he's from he's from out that way, or Oklahoma or something like that. It's one of those O's.
Well, I was gonna say Oklahoma is nowhere near Oregon, but yeah, sure.
We got Jeremiah Smith. Look at Shaw. We know you guys got the best receivers, bro.
Oh man,
we know.
I still argue that Oregon has better. Again, we go back to the returning production. I think Oregon has better returning production than the others.
Yeah, but, no doubt.
Let's go down to the tight end because this is the one. We're
because I think it's crazy that you would say anybody because Colston Loveland's arguably the best tight end in football.
I agree. I agree. I think he is. I think he's up there. I put this as a push, right? Yeah, I put it as a push. And I think Terrence Ferguson, his production and his experience is up there. And I think he could. And I think he very well could be the best tight end in college football this next season. I think he could win the Mackey Award. It just depends on how much we get him the ball. Really, he had 400 yards and 6 touchdowns this last season. But also, I think I think our depth is pretty good. We have returning Kenyon Sadiq, who I think is probably the most athletic one of the most athletic tight ends I've ever seen. I think he is very comparable to Kyle Pitts. So I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing. I don't know who you have at your number 2, so I guess you could tell me that.
So again, this is where the problem lies.
Right.
Because our number 2 is an unproven commodity, right? Okay. We lost Barnhart, who I think was right in the conversation with Loveland, if I'm being real. But we lost Barnhart to the NFL. Brady Priestcorn is going to be a true freshman, along with Hogan Hansen. Both of those guys are 4-star commits, 4-star recruits, but I cannot place any stock on them, like real stock, because they have caught nary a pass. So all of my tight end stock is on the back of Colston Loveland. All right. But I think Colston Loveland is the best tight end in college football. So that's why
how can I forget Patrick Herbert? I completely spaced him as well.
Right.
He's also a senior. So we got 2 seniors coming in and a redshirt sophomore in Kenyon Sadiq. So I mean, I don't know. I think we're running into the same situation as the running back, where Oregon has a lot of returning production, but Michigan probably has the better first option at the tight end position.
Yep. So I can't be mad at that if somebody chose Oregon for tight end. I get it just because of depth, but proven commodity. So that's that. We move on to offensive line. I believe you had this as a push, correct?
I did have this as a push, yes, and that is completely this offensive line one was completely biased.
This. All right,
it was completely biased. I mean, Oregon, we're returning some. I told you this in the comments. I think Oregon has the 2 best tackles in the Big Ten and maybe even in college football in Johnny Cornelius and Josh Connerly. Okay. Both guys have a crazy amount of experience. They're both extremely good tackles. Our interior is where we struggle a little bit. I think our left guard, I want to say, I'm not even going to try to say his name because it's one of those Islander names that has a lot of L's and a lot of O's. Lalu or some shit like that. Right. But he was a freshman All-American this last year. So good there. Center and our other guard position are kind of the questions. Obviously, Jackson Powers Johnson, he won the Remington Award for the best center in college football. He is moving on to the National Football League. So I don't know. I'm basically just going off of our tackles, but you guys probably have a better 5 than we do. But
bro, we're gonna we got like a better 9. Probably. All right.
All right.
There's Greg Crippen, Nathan Afobe, Giovanni El Hadi, Andrew Gentry, I think, is coming back. Amir Herring, Miles Hinton is coming back, right? Somebody in the comment section, let me know Miles Hinton coming back. They lost Trente Jones, they lost Trevor Keegan, they lost Drake Nugent, right? But that offensive line, Evan Link, I said Connor Jones. I mean, it's just stacked, man. It's
I do think you also have a much I love our offensive line coach. He actually retweeted one of our week 0 posts. I love our offensive line coach, but I mean, you guys clearly have the better offensive line coach. So
yeah,
that plays.
I do think he's dropping that position group though as head coach. Grant Newsome will be the offensive line coach now, who was the tight ends coach.
He's still going to be a big part.
Yeah, I agree. Are the most talented teams in the. Here we go. Look.
All right, let's go to this disrespect on the defensive side because I don't want.
Right? Defensive tackle. You said Michigan for defensive tackle?
I gave you DT because we actually our best defensive tackle is going to the league, and we don't really have a whole lot. We didn't really have a whole lot of depth, and actually, we just got a transfer. I wish I could remember these guys' names, but we just got a transfer from Houston, who could be a pretty big, commodity for us. But we didn't really do much at DT. Aiden Breland, obviously, we brought him in. He's a 5-star. They have him listed at defensive end, but he'll probably play defensive tackle on our defense. Ryan's being disrespectful in the comments.
What? Hey, bro, you gotta chill. Man.
So I give you defensive tackle because we just don't have any.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's no need to argue this. We have the best defensive tackle in college football. Mason Graham,
there's that too.
And arguably a top 5 defensive tackle in Kenneth Grant. But I digress. I agree with your defensive tackle. Here we go. Defensive end. Let me know why you chose Oregon.
I chose Oregon because we are returning Jordan Birch. We are also returning Tyamani, or Tuioti, who I'm not even going to try to say his first name, another Islander. We're returning Tuioti, who is one of the best freshman defensive linemen in the Pac-12 this last season. Obviously, I think Jordan Birch is going to be a top 5 pick in the draft next year, as well as obviously Mateo Uyunglele, who had a very good freshman season this last year, and then bringing in Elijah Rushing, obviously unproven, but one of the best defensive ends in this next coming class. I can't remember if I put push or if I put Oregon. I could see it as being more of a push. We also have Ashton Porter, who was a very good freshman. We had a lot of freshman play, as well as Blake Purchase, who was a freshman last year at defensive end, played a lot. I just think our defensive ends are
no doubt.
Really,
I'm not
really
mad
tough.
at you. But we have Josiah Stewart returning. All right,
Okay.
Transfer from East Carolina, or was it Eastern Carolina? Coastal Carolina transfer, made an impact all season. We're also returning Derek Moore, young guy who was a highly touted recruit, made big plays for Michigan this season. By the way, Josiah Stewart made arguably the biggest play this year for Michigan in that Alabama game, as he was the one that tripped up the quarterback there at the end. There is Eno Ita. Didn't get a lot of playing time, but all of the things out of camp were positive. And I only think he didn't get playing time because of the upperclassmen ahead of him, not because they were better either. Let me tell you that. But I think he is going to be a game wrecker. If anybody wants to push this, let me know. I think we have, again, the best top end talent. But
I mean, as far as defensive end goes, I don't, and I mean, we can argue until the sun goes down, which is already down for you. But I think Jordan Birch is one of, if not the best defensive ends in the conference.
Right.
And he was a big reason why Oregon. I think a big reason why Oregon lost that, the conference championship game was because Jordan Birch who was absolutely destroying the Washington offensive line, who won the Moore Award. He he got hurt, I think, in the first 5 minutes of the game and didn't play the rest of the game. So I think that was a big reason why we lost. And for a guy that is that, that much of an impact, I think that makes a big difference. But then again, I guess we could go either way. I just don't know much about. I'll tell you right now. As far as Michigan goes, defensive tackle, I know you guys have absolute studs.
Right.
Defensive end, I didn't know as much about. Linebacker, I didn't know as much about. I just knew who we have returning.
I get it. I think we're gonna find out because, and let's be honest, Oregon and Michigan have not had to look at each other's rosters, look each other up and down really until now, right? We're gonna be playing each other a lot. We're gonna become very familiar with one another's rosters moving forward. It's just the way it is, the way it's got to be.
Right.
So, yeah.
So as far as linebacker, a big reason why I put Oregon as linebacker, and the biggest reason why is that we have pretty much everybody returning at linebacker. Devin Jackson, who got a lot of playing time. The only guys we're losing are Jamal Hill and Mace Funa, who were big players for us last year. But we're also bringing back Justin Jacobs. Justin Jacobs was one of the best linebackers at Iowa when he left. And he didn't play until about mid-season this year and made a huge impact. I'm looking at the statistics right now. He was 9th on the team in tackles, and he only played, I think, 8 games.
Right.
So really impressive there. And then obviously bringing back Bryce Betcher, one of my favorite players in Oregon football history. He's an incredibly good linebacker, and he's also a freaking stud on the diamond. Great baseball player. And then Jeffrey Bassa. The whole country should know Jeffrey Bassa by now. I swear he's been at Oregon for 40 years. I think he's only going into his 4th season, but it seems like he's been there forever. The guy that had the pick 6 against Texas Tech to win that game. Jeffrey Bassa is an absolute stud, and I think the reason why I put Oregon there is because of that returning talent that we have.
Right. I get it. Michigan is returning at linebacker. Jimmy Rolder, absolute stud at linebacker. Michigan is returning Ernest Hausman, the transfer from Nebraska last year, who proved that he was probably the best linebacker on Michigan's team last year. And yes, that includes Junior Colson for those Michigan fans who disagree. I think he was better than everybody. Then there is the transfer that we just got from Maryland, Barham. He's a proven commodity. I think Michigan clears at linebacker. Again, a lot of top end, but I won't be mad at a push or at linebacker. I think.
And here's the thing about our defenses too, and just so
that would be devastating.
Yeah, that would be.
This
tough.
Would be very bad. Forget everything I just said.
to the comment section, the thing about Oregon and Michigan is that they play very different football. On the defensive side, I think Michigan is more of this hard nose. They're gonna, it's almost like watching the Super Bowl coming up. Actually, if you think about it, I think Michigan is very close to the 49ers, where they're these, the hard nose, pound it down your throat. We're going to be more physical than you on defense, whereas Oregon is more of that Kansas City where we have these fast linebackers, we have these skinny dudes, and we have these guys that are quicker than everybody that are going to make different kinds of plays. So I think that's the biggest difference that we have on the defensive side. With that being said, moving on to corner, I gave you
I don't think you gave it to us. I don't think you gave it to us.
Did I not?
I think you pushed the corner.
Oh, I think I did. I push?
Oh no,
No.
you said
No.
you said Michigan. Yeah. You said Michigan.
Yeah.
All right.
I
Yeah.
gave you Michigan because of Will Johnson. I think
who's the best corner in college football.
I think he probably is the best corner in college football. I'll give you that. I did, however, post this. I'm not gonna change. I'm not gonna change what I said, but I did post this before Jabbar Muhammad committed to Oregon. And I think that makes a huge, huge difference because it was a position that I was terrified for coming into this next season. I think we were only bringing back like 2 corners, I want to say, this next year. Everybody else either went to the league or went to the portal. So I think we were only bringing back like Roderick Pleasant was a freshman last year, the fastest player in college football, by the way. Dante Manning is coming back. Jaleel Florence is coming back. But other than that, we were very, very slim at the corner position. And so obviously got to give that to Michigan.
Absolutely. I think obviously there's Will Johnson. There's Jaden McBurrows, who's returning. Jair Hill, young guy who played good minutes. I think Michigan clears at corner, and that leaves us with safety. And I'll go first on this. I think Michigan clears here. Rod Moore and Makari Page returning is massive. You throw in Keon Sabb, who is better than both of them. I said it, better than both of them. He's just younger, and Jim is notorious for playing the older guys. I think Michigan clears here too. I can keep going down this safety line, but those 3 are real. At least 2 of them, Rod Moore and Keon Sabb, are early round type guys on the next level.
Right. And so here's where we get into a position of where we were with the running backs and where we were with I can't remember what other position it was, but
tight end, I believe.
Tight end. You guys got the depth. I think we have the best player, and that being Kobe Savage. He was the Big 12. I think he was like Big 12 Safety of the Year, something like that, or whatever. They Defensive Back of the Year this last season for Kansas State. Kobe Savage is an absolute beast. I think he could very well be the best safety in college football, and I think Dan Lanning is going to treat him is going to make him very, 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 very good. But we don't got much else. We got some young guys that haven't made any impact. Cody DeCambra. We have Tyler Turner coming in as they were redshirt freshmen this last season. So we don't have we just don't have the depth that you guys have. I did put Oregon, but mainly being because I think Kobe Savage is just an absolute game wrecker this next coming season. And then the last one, Coach.
I'm gonna give you guys much like I had to concede this with Ohio State last year when they played Notre Dame. Ryan Day was clearly the better coach. It played out that way, by the way, because he could count to 11, and they won. So there's that. And in this case, even with the big wins that he got on the resume, Sherrone Moore just doesn't have the resume of Dan Lanning. I can see Dan Lanning as the better coach right now.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for this upcoming season. I have no idea what
Oregon in the big house. We're gonna be there, by the way. Mark it down. Catch me in the big house the week we play Oregon. It's going to be
Heck yeah.
a great week. Big game for Michigan. Should have a lot of we should find out a lot for sure.
Dude, that's gonna be a fun one. I'll probably be I'm hoping to be at in Eugene for the other state game.
Oh yeah,
this year. I'm trying to get Garrison out to come watch that game. To come watch that game.
I should come in all Michigan stuff anyway.
You should. I would
love
it.
That'll be good.
I would absolutely love it.
What a West Coast school come into the big house.
You don't want to bring this up. Hey, what happened the last time this West Coast team went to the big house?
That's fair.
You don't want to bring it up, man. You don't want to bring it up.
I don't want to talk about it. Till next time, follow my guy Luke on Twitter, LukeDog.
Yes, sir. LukeDog
McTight. Follow me everywhere at Maze Madman. Be sure to follow, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Week 0 Productions. This show simulcast on Week 0. So give them a follow too. Until next time, stay angry, my friends. I'm upset.